If you are a PA or an NP and you are wanting to get out of clinical practice and trying to discover what jobs that you can do in medical industry, and you're not even sure what medical industry is, then stay tuned. This video is for you.
My name is Rachel Jurgensen, and I'm a physician assistant, and I have been one for 26 years now. I practiced for 16 years, and I switched over into medical industry about 10 years ago. I've had several different roles, and I have really very much enjoyed it.
Today, we're going to dive a little deeper into what medical industry is and the different types of jobs that are available. But first, I want you to redefine for us what medical industry is, because that's not a term we hear all the time.
Really, I want you to think about looking around your office, your hospital, your practice, wherever you are as a healthcare provider, and see the drugs you use, the devices that you reprogram or program or implant, the surgeries that you do, all that equipment, the tests that you run. So anything that really supports you as a healthcare provider is really in medical industry. So I kind of like to break it up into 4 different areas. So there's diagnostics, right? Like labs, assays, specialty tests, capital equipment, imaging equipment for CT scans and your diagnostic testing, like it's run on a piece of equipment, right? And then there's pharmaceuticals, which is really kind of what we think the mainstay of medical industry is, and it is a part of it. So those are all the drugs that we use, the compounding pharmacies, the immunizations that they have, all of that. Then you think of medical devices. So those are the implants, the devices that we use for our patients to help them. There's remote patient monitoring, right, for medical devices. So medical device, pharma, diagnostic, and capital equipment. Those are really kind of the 4 areas that I think about most whenever I say medical industry.
And I imagine in each of those categories, there are specific job titles. And I think that's one area that clinicians struggle with when they're looking for those non-clinical jobs. They may see job postings, but they don't really know what those titles are that they're looking for or what those titles mean. So that's what we're going to dive in a little bit further today. And one thing I thought of too, when you talked about wearables and digital stuff, I imagine that all of that is just set to explode with the new technology coming on the scene. And I assume that there are going to be lots more opportunities coming down the road.
Absolutely. So I really probably should say there should be a 5th one, right? Like software solutions. The company that I work for now, we call it digital health solutions. And you're totally right. AI is going to change things. I don't know exactly how yet. I think that that's going to be very interesting. I just helped somebody get prepared for an interview with an AI medical imaging company. So it is definitely what's next.
Let's talk about titles of these positions. What are the actual names of the positions that PAs and NPs should be thinking about when they're looking at these ads in medical industry?
I will say probably there are 50 different titles sometimes, and that is what's hard. And so what I would first encourage you to do is look through all the titles, especially if you're interested in a company, go to their website and just read the postings. I've had a crazy title called Value Expansion Specialist that says nothing about who I am or what I did in that position unless you're part of this specific company. So definitely read the descriptions and think through, would I be a good fit for this? And you don't have to meet every requirement. I want to get that out of your mind. Like as healthcare providers, we have to meet every requirement, right? But as you move into medical industry, you do not have to meet every requirement. Just a couple, go for it, go for the job. But as far as titles go, like for diagnostics, it could be a technical sales specialist, a technical solutions specialist. It could be a diagnostic sales rep. It could be a diagnostic clinical consultant. For pharmaceuticals, it could be a territory manager. It could be an account manager. It could be an executive account manager. It could be a sales representative. It could be a sales associate. It could be associate role, a sales specialist, a clinical sales specialist. There's clinical specialists. So there are many different titles, different roles. And I'm just kind of looking at my notes, like there are marketing positions, there are product manager positions, there are education positions. If you think about it, somebody is teaching the reps and the providers how to use everything, right? And so there are those kind of roles that we as healthcare providers can come into as well. There's training, there's thought leader liaisons, people that work with the key opinion leaders and the pharmaceutical companies or the diagnostic companies to talk about the product and the literature around the product. So there are a bunch of different titles. It's really thinking about what you want to do, what you're passionate about. There's just so many different options out there.
And do you think that clinicians tend to sell themselves short a little bit when they look at those job descriptions and they think, "Oh, I just, I don't have that experience. I can't do that." Do you see that people doing that a lot?
I work with students and clients of mine all the time. And I think we always, as healthcare providers, sell ourselves short. If I could leave you with one thing today, is like, you are the prize. If you are going into medical industry, you are the catch because you have that clinical background. You have the clinical expertise. You have this training that sets you up for success because you don't know about just that one pharmaceutical agent or that one diagnostic test. You know all the disease states that affect that pharmaceutical agent, the diagnostic test. You understand before a patient goes in for an implant what good looks like. You understand the importance of integrity in this area so much more than anybody else. Literally, we had somebody decide that this floor salesman was going to be the best fit for medical industry in one of the companies that I worked for.
He was a person who sold flooring previously. Is that what you're
He's
saying?
all flooring. And I'm telling you, he was great, super smart, was able to get everything. But in my opinion, who better to come in and sell me something than somebody who's used the product, who understands the competition, who brings me value every time, who understands if you recommend a product that's not the best for a patient, that's only going to make you look bad and it doesn't set you up for success in the future. So you don't have to be salesy to be in sales. You just have to be kind of more of a consultant. I call it consultative sales. So you can kind of come alongside providers, administrators, CEOs, CIOs to help them make the best decisions for their patients. So that's really what you're doing in these roles, whether you're a medical science liaison, a clinical specialist, a sales representative. You're just helping people understand the literature, understand the clinical fit so that they can make the best decisions for their patients.
I don't know who we think are these magical people that meet these job descriptions. If we as clinicians who have master's degrees and who understand medicine and have learned medicine, if we are
Right.
not the best people for these fits, then who are we thinking is? And I'm talking about like
Right.
myself too. Like I've read job descriptions before and I think, oh, I'm not, I don't qualify for that. But I've never thought through who then is the person. Like you said, these pharmaceutical companies, they're interviewing flooring salesmen, they're interviewing people that have some science background, but not the background that we have. And so I love that point when you said to realize that we are the catch, that we are prime candidates to get these jobs.
Absolutely. And there are lots and lots of jobs out there. I did a LinkedIn search for all these different positions. There were over 50,000 job opportunities just a couple of months ago. So that isn't going away. Companies may be laying off, they may be changing things, but there are lots of companies who are adding new medication, adding new diagnostic testing. And so this industry is growing. It's not going away. People are needed.
When I heard you talk about some of those roles, I think, well, I may not have ever used that particular implant, or I'm not necessarily an expert in this diagnostic tool. I may have used it, but I'm not an expert, so I probably can't get that job. I assume that once you get hired, that these companies are training you on their specific products and the different things that you're repping. They're not just going to expect you to come in with all this knowledge. They're going to help you and train you.
So my husband is in medical sales. He sold printers before he got into medical sales. So he worked for a large printing company. And he's one of the smartest people I know. He has been able to come into industry and learn everything and pick everything up and do well, but he still doesn't have that background and that solid information. But the companies, they train you, they have trainers, they'll come ride with you and go to appointments with you and help you. And then you're not going to get in front of a customer like if you're going to be a clinical specialist or a medical device rep, they're not going to let you in a room with the patient by yourself unless you are signed off on that, meaning that you've met all the requirements, you've done all the training, you've passed all the competency exams, and you know every single thing about it. The training is extensive and then it's ongoing as well.
So reassuring to hear and so great. So hopefully we laid to rest people's misconception that one, they're not qualified if you're a PA or NP, and two, that you have to know everything about the product before you even get hired. Now, the other thing that I think about, a clinician talks about a non-clinical role. The first thing they say is, oh, I want to be an MSL. And I don't know whether that's just because for some reason that became a title that people knew about. I mean, I'm sure it's a great job, but these other jobs that you're talking about, are they on the same, well, if you want to say level as MSL? I mean, are all these good paying jobs, or is MSL, is it kind of the pinnacle of what clinicians would go for?
Being an MSL is great, right? So it's a medical science liaison. And just a little bit about that role for those of you who don't know, if the sales representative goes in, they can only talk about so much about a product and it has to be on label. Medical science liaison can talk more about the research and the background, the clinical trials. And so they have this depth of knowledge. So it's a great position. And they look for somebody who's got an MD, a PhD. They look for PAs and NPs or somebody with a ton of experience in the area with the product or with a competitive product. So those are great positions and you can make really good money in those positions. You can go on into scientific affairs, medical affairs. I've seen people go into marketing from a medical science liaison position. I've seen director of medical science liaison. And so you're like the manager of the MSL team. So you can still like keep going and going. As a sales rep, you're front line, just like you're front line as a PA, right? So you can go into management, you can be a director, you can be a regional business director, you can go into marketing, training, be a vice president of a division. There are so many things. Once you get in, then you can really figure out like where your skill set fits best for the company and like where it's meaningful for you to make an impact.
Yeah, and I love what you said, what fits you the best, because medical science liaison, you have to be somebody who really loves to dig into research. And that may not be the right fit for everybody. But I think clinicians have in our head that medical science liaison is what PAs and NPs transition to if they're going to go into medical industry. And so I just was thinking there are all these other jobs. And I guess my main question was, are these other jobs fairly equivalent in pay to medical science liaison in general? They're all going to be different pay, but any of these jobs are going to at least match the PA or NP income that most people are making, correct?
For myself, my base salary is about 50% more than what I made as a PA. The students that I've worked with, they've gotten 20% increase in their base salary, 25% increase in their base salary. And then that's not taking into the account, like you get either a phone or a phone allowance, you get a car or a car allowance. You have incentives. If you hit your metrics, you can get bonuses, whether you're a medical science liaison or in sales. So then you have even a greater potential to make even more money. In this industry, a lot of times you're paid for your value and not your productivity. It's the value that you bring to your customers, meaning that's usually providers or administrators. You're paid for the value that you bring. And so you're helping them help their patients.
It sounds like in medical industry that the ceiling's a lot taller. We have a lot more options once you get into the industry.
Absolutely. There are so many different roles. It's really what you want it to be.
When we were talking about MSL, you mentioned that they often look for people who have PhDs or looking at MDs. I think some people have had some trouble getting MSL jobs because they may not have a PhD. A lot of these other roles that you mentioned earlier, Are you still a good candidate for these other roles if you don't have a doctorate?
So I'm going to say absolutely yes, you're a great candidate. And even for the medical science liaison roles, the folks that I have worked with to get into medical science liaison positions, about 50% of them have had their PhD. So not all of them have had their PhD. So you can still get these medical science liaison roles without having a PhD or doctorate or anything like that. So just want you to be aware of that. And then for the other position, the sales roles, you don't have to have that. Your clinical background, your clinical expertise brings so much value. Your experience with product or your passion about the product, it speaks volumes. So it's really making sure your resume is really nicely crafted and it shows the value that you bring in order to get your foot in the door.
Not only have you worked in this industry, but you have decided to help other people, right? Other clinicians find their way into medical industry. So
Yes.
tell us what you have created to help people and tell us about the success that you've had with your program.
Well, first of all, I was like, I wish somebody would have helped me. I wish I would have had somebody who had been a PA or NP turn around and say, oh, you want to do industry? Like, let me help you. And so I've created a course to help people understand how to transition from being a healthcare provider into medical industry, the verbiage, the wording, all of that, and give that insider scoop on this is what industry is, this is what it means, this is how you get in. And it's really crafting your resume. You can't just send your PA resume or NP resume. You've got to like up your game a little bit. So I teach people how to do that. I teach people how to interview. I teach people how to present themselves and show their value and really understand you're the catch, you're the prize. Like they're going to be lucky to have you, but you have to show that in your interview. It's an on demand course, 7 hours of content. And then I do group coaching, which is really fun. And I offer one-on-one coaching too, to really like hone in and do some laser focused coaching. And I love it. It's been really fun. I think you asked me about the success that I've had. I've helped people get medical science liaison jobs. Some have doctorates, some do not. I've helped people get contracting sales roles where they represent a product and they work when they want to work. I've helped people get sales representative roles, similar kind of to what I have done, which is medical sales. And I came into industry as a clinical specialist because it's kind of a hybrid sales role, clinical role. And I've helped people get those roles as well. And so it's just kind of a great experience. I really wanted to create a community of people who were like-minded and wanted the same things and could relate to each other.
And I was thinking when you were talking, it's not just a resume polish, right? I imagine that you help people understand the terminology because even though it has to do with medicine, every industry has their own terminology. And so
Right.
sometimes it's just learning that language, right? To be able to present your skills and what experience you might have, but in a way that they understand.
Absolutely. Making sure like you have patient education or clinician education, right? Or competitive insight. You may see it as I use 4 different products, but what they see is you have competitive insight because you understand why you're going to choose what product when you choose it. And so to me, that's competitive insight, right? Things like that. And I do a whole acronym. Like this is what AVG means. This is what ACV means. This is what RAV means. That's recurring annual value. Like, okay, what in the world is that? And contracts. And because some things, like if you get into medical devices or capital equipment, people can rent equipment or they buy equipment. And so we get into a little bit of that, but it's just an overview to give you the confidence of going in day one and not being completely lost.
And I imagine to be able to go into an interview and have some confidence that you understand the lingo and you can talk the lingo with people and show that you have a level of understanding even before you get hired.
Right. It's just really making sure that you stand out. And that's what I really help my students to do.
Across all industries in the world today, just getting your resume past probably an AI reader who's searching your resume and
Yes.
sorting people before you even get in front of a human being. Your course is going to help people put the terminology on their resume that's going to get them at least sorted into a category where they even have a chance, right?
Yes. So I've worked with people who are like, okay, if I've applied for 15, 20 MSL jobs, and then working with them, they get through, they get the call, getting to HR. And that's the whole thing of like, you've got to get through the robots and you can get through them with the right language for the most part. Not all of them, right? But a lot of the time. And I actually worked with a professional resume writer and she taught me some of her tips and tricks and it's helped to get through the system.
Okay, well, if people want to access your course so that they can get the information and get the step-by-step guide on how to get into medical industry, where do people find your course?
So if you go to racheljurgensen.com, and it's just how you spell my name altogether.com, and they can find the course there and frequently ask questions. There is a workshop that you can do if you want to learn from the workshop as well. And then you can sign up for one-on-ones. And I have a free Facebook group and it's called Making an Impact in Medical Industry as a Healthcare Provider. So you can sign up for that too. And I definitely get tips and tricks in that as well. Just the course is a little bit more focused and all concentrated into one.
And for my viewers, are we offering any kind of discount on the course for them?
So whenever we did the interview with you last time, I offered 20%. I will extend that through the end of this year.
Perfect. All links and codes are in the description box below. Thank you, Rachel, for being here today. And thank you for developing this course to help clinicians find their way into these non-clinical roles.
I look forward to my job and I want other people to look forward to going to their job too. So thank you for having me on again, Michelle.
Well, I hope that after watching this video, you understand that there are a ton of medical industry jobs available for PAs and NPs. If you're intrigued about an MSL and you want to learn more about what they actually do, I'll have a video linked here for that. And I'll also have a playlist linked here that tells you about other non-clinical jobs that PAs and NPs qualify for. Thank you so much for watching today. And as always, take care, stay sane, and I'll see you next time on the Medicine Couch. Bye.